Have you ever wondered how fairy tales with their magical creatures and enchanted kingdoms came to be? Picture this, a world where bedtime stories are more than just an escape into a dreamy land of princesses, talking animals, and magic. A world where these tales are woven into the very fabric of our society, shaping our values, our dreams, and our fears. Fairy tales, those age-old stories passed down through generations, are not as innocent as they seem. They are a reflection of the time when they were created, often filled with cautionary messages and harsh realities, masked beneath the guise of magic and whimsy. Beneath the surface of these beguiling tales, there lies a much darker truth. A truth that is often glossed over in favor of a more palatable narrative. But what if we were to lift that veil? What if we dared to explore the shadowy corners of these beloved tales? Let's peel back the layers of enchantment and delve into the grimmer side of these well-loved stories. Beneath the magical transformation and the glass slipper, Cinderella hides a darker tale. In our genteel version, Cinderella is a beacon of hope and resilience, a young maiden maltreated by her wicked stepmother and stepsisters, yet destined for a royal romance. But have you ever wondered about the grim origins of this beloved fairy tale? Cinderella, as we know her, is a sanitized rendition of a tale that dates back to ancient Greece, and later, the Brothers Grimm, who were known for their unflinching portrayal of life's harsh realities. Their version lacks the fairy godmother, the pumpkin carriage, and the jovial mice. Instead, Cinderella's transformation is a testament to her unwavering faith and the power of a wish made upon a hazel tree planted on her mother's grave. The Cinderella of old is not merely a passive recipient of her fate, but a determined young woman who takes matters into her own hands. She attends the royal ball 3 times, not by the wave of a magic wand, but by her own cunning and the aid of a white bird, a symbol of her deceased mother's spirit. The tale takes an even darker turn when it comes to the wicked stepsisters. In a desperate attempt to fit into the golden slipper and marry the prince, one sister slices off her toes and the other her heel. Their gruesome actions are not hidden from the prince, but rather revealed by the blood spilling from the slipper. This story does not end with the stepsisters' defeat. Instead, they attend Cinderella's wedding only to have their eyes pecked out by the same white bird that helped Cinderella, a rather harsh punishment for their vanity and cruelty. So, Cinderella's happy ending was not so simple in the original tale. It was a story of grit, determination, and rather brutal justice. A far cry from the sanitized version we've come to know and love. As we move forward, we'll continue to uncover the darker origins of our favorite fairy tales, revealing the stark realities they once reflected. Little Red Riding Hood, a cautionary tale, was not always about a girl and a wolf. This familiar story, often filled with vibrant illustrations and a heroic woodsman, hides a darker past. Our tale begins centuries ago, where the color red was not just a fashion statement but a symbol of danger, a warning. The original versions of this story were not intended to entertain children but to offer a stark lesson about the dangers of trusting strangers. In these early versions, Little Red Riding Hood, often portrayed as a naive young girl, encounters a wolf on her way to her grandmother's house. The wolf, a cunning creature, deceives her with sweet words and a friendly demeanor. However, his intentions are far from benign. The wolf races ahead, devours the grandmother, and then, in a macabre twist, dresses in her clothes. When Little Red Riding Hood arrives, she is none the wiser, falling prey to the wolf's cruel trick. In these versions, there is no heroic woodsman to save the day. Instead, the story ends with Little Red Riding Hood meeting a tragic end. This original narrative served as a stern warning to children about the dangers of trusting strangers. The wolf, disguised as a friendly, familiar figure, signifies the potential danger lurking beneath the surface of every stranger. The tragic fate of Little Red Riding Hood was used to instill a healthy sense of caution and wariness in children. As the tale evolved, it was softened, made more palatable to young audiences. The woodsman was introduced as a savior, rescuing Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, turning a dark cautionary tale into a story of triumph and bravery. However, it's crucial to remember the origins of this tale and the lesson it imparts. It's a reminder not to take things at face value, to exercise caution, and to question the intentions of those we do not know. So as we delve deeper into the darker side of fairy tales, let's not forget, remember Little Red Riding Hood was not always saved by the woodsman. Sleeping Beauty, a tale of a princess, a spindle, and a 100-year slumber. But what if the true story was far darker? Enter the world of the original Sleeping Beauty, a tale not of innocent slumber and true love's kiss, but one that carries a far more sinister undertone. Known by its Italian title, Sun, Moon and Talia, this story was penned by Giambattista Basile in the 17th century, and let's just say, it's not exactly bedtime story material. In Basile's version, the Princess Talia does fall into a deep sleep, not because of a curse, but due to a splinter of flax lodged under her fingernail. She's discovered not by a charming prince, but by a king who, enthralled by her beauty, takes advantage of her unconscious state. This is not a romantic tale of love at first sight, but a story shrouded in darkness and assault. The story takes an even more disturbing turn when the queen, furious at her husband's infidelity, orders the children born from this encounter to be cooked and served to the king. Thankfully, the cook substitutes the children with lambs, saving their lives. The queen, blinded by rage, then tries to throw Talia into a fire, but in a twist of fate, it's the queen who meets her end in the flames. In the end, the king and Talia are reunited with their children and live happily ever after, or so the story goes. But this tale of assault, betrayal, and abandonment leaves a chilling aftertaste. It's a stark reminder of the grim realities of the world that were often woven into tales meant to educate and caution the youth. These darker elements, while shocking, are integral to the original tale. They reveal a narrative far removed from the sanitized, rosy depiction of Sleeping Beauty we've come to know, a rose-tinted version where the princess is awakened by a prince's kiss and they live happily ever after. Indeed, Sleeping Beauty's original tale is quite a departure from the sanitized version we know today. Hansel and Gretel, a story of clever children and a wicked witch, but the original tale is far more sinister. Imagine a world where famine is so severe that a mother and father are forced to abandon their own children in the forest, hoping against hope they might somehow survive. This is the world in which Hansel and Gretel found themselves not by choice, but by the cruel hand of fate. In the familiar version, the children are depicted as clever, outwitting the witch with breadcrumbs and quick thinking. But the original tale paints a darker picture, one where the breadcrumbs are not a clever trick, but a desperate attempt at survival. Hansel, the brave older brother, drops these crumbs in hopes of finding the way back home, but alas, they are eaten by birds, leaving the siblings lost and alone. The theme of starvation is a recurring one in this tale. The witch's gingerbread house, a symbol of hope and salvation, turns out to be a trap. It's not a benevolent old woman who lives there, but a witch who lures in starving children with the promise of food, only to fatten them up for her own consumption. The witch's intent? Cannibalism, a gruesome theme that echoes the desperation of the world outside her candy-coated home. But let's not forget the theme of abandonment. The children's parents, driven by desperation and hunger, leave their offspring to fend for themselves, in a world that's cruel and unforgiving. It's a stark contrast to the loving family portrait often painted in the sanitized versions of this tale. Yet despite these horrifying circumstances, the children triumph. They outwit the witch, push her into the oven and return home with her treasure. It's a victory, yes, but one born out of necessity and survival rather than a simple adventure. Certainly, the tale of Hansel and Gretel is a far cry from the innocent adventure we often perceive it to be. Unsettling as they may be, these darker versions of fairy tales serve a purpose. Fairy tales, as we know them today, are often sugar-coated versions of much darker, more sinister stories that originated centuries ago. These stories were not merely bedtime tales to lull children into sweet dreams, rather, they were cautionary tales, intended to teach moral lessons, warn against dangers, and reflect the issues plaguing society at that time. The grim and often grotesque nature of these original fairy tales was a stark contrast to the sanitized versions we are familiar with today. They were filled with violence, betrayal, and heartache, embodying the harsh realities of the world. These tales were passed down from generation to generation, each retelling subtly tweaked to resonate with contemporary societal norms and values. Let's take a step back and look at the purpose behind these dark tales. In an era where there were no written laws or public governance, these stories served as a moral compass, teaching children about the consequences of stepping out of line. They were essentially a form of social control, instilling fear in the hearts of young ones about the dangers lurking in the world. Take, for example, the gruesome tale of Hansel and Gretel. This story was a stark warning about the perils of wandering off into the unknown, a common danger In a time when dense forests were fraught with risks, it also highlighted the grim reality of famine and desperation that people often faced. Similarly, the disturbing tale of Cinderella served as a lesson about the pitfalls of jealousy and cruelty, while the original Sleeping Beauty was a dark commentary on abuse of power. Moreover, these tales were a reflection of the harsh societal issues of their time. Child abandonment, famine, class disparities, and the abuse of power were rampant problems that were subtly highlighted in these stories. The fairy tale characters were often victims of these societal issues, their struggles mirroring the hardships faced by ordinary people. Despite their dark undertones, these tales also offered a glimmer of hope. They conveyed the message that even in the face of adversity one could triumph with courage, wit, and a strong moral compass. The protagonists, despite their hardships, often emerged victorious, providing a sense of hope and resilience. So, while these fairy tales were grim and unsettling, they were instrumental in shaping societal norms, imparting moral lessons, and providing a stark reflection of the world. Over time, as society progressed and changed, so did these tales. They were gradually sanitized, the gruesome details replaced with happier, more palatable elements to appeal to a younger audience. However, the essence of these tales, the moral lessons, the warnings, and the societal reflections, remains intact, subtly woven into the fabric of the stories. Indeed, the fairy tales we know and love have a much darker history than we might imagine. These tales, as grim as they may be, are part of our cultural heritage. They've journeyed through centuries, morphing and evolving, shedding some of their darkness while clinging onto their essential elements. Let's take a moment to appreciate this journey, to understand how these stories have grown and changed to become the fairy tales we know and love today. Fairy tales were not born in a vacuum. They were born in societies plagued with famine, disease, and war, and they reflected the harsh realities of those times. They were tools used to convey life's brutal truths, to impart lessons, and to communicate societal norms and expectations. But as societies evolved, so did these tales. The darkness was toned down, the brutality softened. They were reimagined, reshaped to cater to a more innocent audience, our children. They became tales of magic and enchantment, tales of good triumphing over evil, tales that spark the imagination and fuel dreams. Yet the essence, the core of these stories, remains unchanged. Cinderella is still a tale of resilience and hope in the face of adversity. Little Red Riding Hood still warns against the dangers lurking in the unknown. Sleeping Beauty still speaks of love's power to conquer all. And Hansel and Gretel, they still remind us of the strength and resourcefulness of the human spirit when faced with trials and tribulations. Understanding the origins of these tales, their evolution, and the societal context in which they were created, allows us to appreciate them in a new light. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, revealing the depth and complexity beneath the surface. It enriches our experience, deepens our understanding, and connects us to our past. So, next time you read a fairy tale, remember, beneath the magic and enchantment, there may be a darker tale waiting to be told. These stories, as enchanting as they may seem, are not just flights of fancy. They are echoes of our history, reflections of our collective human experience, and testament to our enduring spirit.